And it looks like we've hit our 2 minutes, so welcome to Triton Office Hours. Jasper, looks like you're the only one here, so you can go ahead and ask as many questions as you want, as long as we have time for it. I just wanted to say today we're going to be discussing Triton and how to contribute to Triton, SmartOS, and subsequently Illumos. And Dan has so graciously lent his time again to discuss this, so thank you very much, Dan. So whenever you're ready, Dan, go ahead and take it away, and we'll get on with the presentation. Thank you.
Sorry, lost my mute button there for a second, which is really weird. Okay. Today we are going to talk about how to contribute to Triton. Now, everybody knows, and I'm putting the URL here in the office hours chat. There we go. Triton Data Center, that's our home. That's our GitHub home. And yes, we know GitHub is owned by Microsoft now, and yes, we know that's a central point of failure, but it has been pretty stable and solid, and we continue to use this as the home for our open source repositories, all of which are either under Mozilla Public License 2 or under the old Open Solaris, now Illumos Common Development and Distribution License. Both of which are weak copylefts insofar as that if you modify a file under CDDL, you have to publicize your changes the minute you're shipping something with it. It gives private companies a little bit of wiggle room. Some of those private companies abuse it, not to mention names, Tintry, but and other companies are very good about it. Delphix is certainly that way with the OpenZFS stuff, and Racktop is pretty good about making sure that their CDDL changes are out and available, and in some cases actively upstreaming. I'm looking at you, Racktop. Thank you for that. Anyway, but we have these.
We do also have several that are MIT licensed.
Yes.
Like a lot of the core Node libraries that are very common in the Node community. Those are usually MIT licensed.
Jasper asked what was the deal with CDDL 1.1, and as I understood it, I didn't pay attention to the licensing wars inside Sun, or the Open Solaris missile crisis while I was in Sun, but as I understood it, CDDL 1.1 was more amenable to, you can close the code that you own under CDDL. Beyond that, I don't know, maybe a stronger you grant your contributions to the project's owner sort of language. Otherwise, Oracle wouldn't have been able to close Open Solaris, as I understand it, or any other acquirer of Sun Microsystems. So, yeah. And
to be clear, the CDDL chose us. We didn't choose it.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, cool. Jasper's happy with my answer. All right, wonderful. All right, so basically to contribute, the best way for a new person to contribute to Triton Data Center, any part of it, including SmartOS and including Illumos Joyent, is you can submit an issue on GitHub, or even if you have the code ready, a pull request. Now we will be taking those pull requests, and if it's a sufficiently, actually most of the time, unless it's something really tiny, we will create an internal Jira ticket for it, and we will make sure it gets assigned to that bug. Anything that goes into a Triton Data Center repo requires at least one code reviewer. Sometimes the people who run the project, mainly us, will ask for more than one reviewer. And some repositories require an extra level of review called integration. IA. I can't remember. I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
Integration approval.
Thank you. Integration approval. And basically, these these steps and ticks that we have for contributing to Triton Data Center come from Illumos, which in turn come from the old Sun Microsystems engineering process. The basic things you need to make sure when you contribute code is that it has been reviewed and it has been tested, and that testing has been documented. In Illumos, we insist on having the testing results documented in the bug file in the Illumos bug ticketing system. For engaging via GitHub, we request that you document the testing somewhere in the review process or the pull request process of GitHub as we review it. We will take that testing and copy it into our own internal Jira tickets, but it will stay out on any user contribute. The testing notes need to be there, and they will stay on GitHub, as well as get a redundant copy put into the Jira ticket that we use in-house to track this stuff. That's basically it, and it's a very shrink-to-fit process. If you have a small bug fix, you'll probably only need one code reviewer, and if it's not a repository that requires IA, just make sure that you document your testing before we push the squash to merge. And yes, you may have 1 million commits in your pull request, but when we pull it into our repository, it will be one squashed commit with the Jira ticket name, reviewed by list, and approved by individual if that repository requires it. You can go look at any Illumos joint commit to see examples of what we have in mind. Whether they're internal tickets, you'll see OS- whatever, or if they are downstreamed from Illumos, in which case you'll see currently they're at 5-digit Illumos bug number, followed by the description, and the description needs to fit on one line, and immediately afterwards are reviewed by someone else, and approved by a third someone. There are times when, if it's a small bug, the reviewer and the approver might be the same person. But for anything, as the contribution gets larger and more complex, the review process will be larger and more complex as well to go along with it. But if it's small, it shouldn't take too long. At this point, Jasper here, the only one here, and actually, if there's anyone in-house too who wants more details, I'm happy to describe them. But any questions at this point? Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, so that make sure you get code review, make sure you actually run tests and document them, and be prepared to, if anybody asks, why didn't you test X, or what about this piece in your code, don't take it as an attack. Take it as we are trying to make sure that we adhere to if this commit goes back, we could ship tomorrow with it. And that's, FCS quality all the time was the sentence that was uttered in Sun. And that's what we continue on that tradition with Illumos and its descendants, including the entirety of Triton. The entirety of SmartOS, as well as that philosophy is spilled over into Triton Data Center. I think at this point we may have... reasons. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
One of the main reasons that we have some of these policies in place is we don't want unattributed change going on in the software. So Triton has a specific behavior today, or at any one point in time, Triton has a specific behavior. Every commit modifies that behavior in some way. And so we always want to be able to go back and understand why a change was made. There are some changes in there, especially very old ones, that it's not really documented well why it's like that. And when we don't know why a certain change was made, we don't know entirely the ramifications of altering that behavior. Sometimes it's safe, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a little bit risky. Sometimes stuff was put in there for very good reasons, and changing it would be a very bad idea. But it might look like a small trivial change, having that history of why it behaves in a certain way helps us take the software forward without having regressions.
Yep. Well said and 100% true. Yeah, so that's that drives why we ask for what we ask, is exactly that. We want transparency into any changes, and then we hold ourselves to that same standard. This is not something we apply to external contributors only. Anything we ask of an external contributor, we ask of ourselves. And yeah, so if anybody notices that we aren't, something's wrong. And if somebody, or something's wrong, or somebody forgot to write down whatever the heck it was, I have forgotten to put down testing notes, or I have forgotten to be proper in the bug definition, and that I will go back and fix those if somebody tells me I forgot something easily, and that's true for anybody, and we expect that from anybody.
And that's also an assurance for customers that. When we make a change, we've documented why that change was made. And you can look at any one of our tickets and the code involved with that ticket and make a judgment for yourself. Were these changes appropriate for that ticket? It allows our customers and users to hold us accountable for not being able to sneak a backdoor into something with smuggling changes with something unrelated. That kind of thing has happened before in open source projects. It gives our users an assurance of being able to check up on us and make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen, because at the end of the day, people are running their businesses on the software, and people choose open source because they want to be able to review that code. And so all of these things together gives a good set of tools to be able to know why every single change was made.
Jasper, you're typing something, so wait. We can wait. Well, we can keep. Oh, there we go. Having to take responsibility for emerging commit gives you folks the right to scrutinize as much as you. Yes. Having to take, I'm saying this for the audio transcript, having to take responsibility for merging the commit definitely gives you folks the right to scrutinize it as much as you feel is appropriate. And like I said earlier, that level of scrutiny is applied to ourselves as much as it would be to any other contributor. It's only fair, both to us and to the contributor and to the audience for these changes, which is people who use the software as well as people who read the software. And sometimes those two groups intersect. It's not a complete one circle Venn diagram, but there's definitely a set of people who are using the source and then who are using the product or using the distribution and then looking into the source as well. And so we have a responsibility to everybody in both circles. So Brian, do we have a sample one that we can go through, or I don't know if we have anything else to talk about that I haven't said already, or you haven't said already?
Like a recent one or a new change that we want to do?
Like a new change? I thought we had a low-hanging simple one.
Yeah, we did. 2392, I think.
Hold on.
Nope.
Hold on, 96.
239. There we go.
Is that one viewable on bugs.smartos.org? Or smartos.org bug view? Yeah.
Let's make sure. Yeah, it is.
Hold on. It's 2396, not 86. Learn to type, Dan. There we go. I am placing the URL in the chat. Boom.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have much of a description because the one-line summary is pretty descriptive.
Yeah. little bit more context for this. We've had Beehive for about 5 years now in Triton. And a while back, we made it so that it was possible for operators to choose to have Beehive as the default HVM platform or brand type. Currently, in Triton, if you don't have it specified and you don't specify in the provision request, you're going to get a KVM instance. And so we've had the ability for operators to change that default. But now we think it's time for new installations of Triton to make that the default. And we're implementing this in a way that it's not changing the behavior of Cloud API itself. So that if you have an existing data center, an existing installation, we're not going to change the default on you just because you upgraded the version. But we're setting the config parameter by default for new installations. So once this change is put back, a new installation of Triton will default to Beehive.
Some of this description should probably end up in the ticket if it isn't there already. But that doesn't need to be a do it now problem.
Yeah.
But the implementation of the change is pretty small, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's just a one-liner. Did you want to go through and do the commits, or do you want me to?
I'd like you to, because this was your idea, and I think it's a wonderful one. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I want to be the reviewer on it anyway.
Okay. All right. So let me
next window here.
Let's see here.
Screen. There we go.
I think I'm gonna have to switch to my desktop. I might drop and be back in a second.
No worries. Which repo are we going to?
SDC head node. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
You got a terminal window.
Okay, so here's the head node repository. First thing we're going to do is make a branch for the work that we're going to do. And then the file that we need to change is not that one.
And just quick question while you're doing that, is there like a style guide, or like, see how you named the change? Do we have like a document about any of that?
For bug filing, you mean?
I just mean like naming your branch and things like that. Do we have like a standards guide?
For you can, if you're coming in from the outside, you can name your branch anything that's like reasonable. When we file a bug internally, or when we assign a ticket, we might encourage the branch to be renamed to the bug in question, which is why Brian chose to name this branch Triton 2396. It's not official, but it's something we do in practice. Yeah, that exactly.
Yeah, the branch name is not so important. That's just going to come through in the pull request. Yeah, but when I do the commit, we have a specific message format that we want for the commit, and so you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier when I encouraged people to look through any Illumos joint commit, where you can see both the ones we use in Triton Data Center repos, as well as the ones that are upstream in Illumos Gate. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just
Give-
going to stick this in right here.
Mhm.
And here we go. Now,
You want
this
to
is
update the copyright? Doing some preemptive. Oh no, it's
well, this is a
zip file.
JSON file.
Never mind.
Yeah. So
Never mind.
the like the style guide for JSON files really is that it needs to like valid, or it needs to be able to parse. We don't have any other particular requirements about it. Being readable is better, but you can see like uh, right here, like this isn't like JSON pretty printed. Um, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. But it's readable. This file has more spaces than would if it was JSON pretty printed. But again, like not a big deal. We don't have particular like requirements around that. But it needs to parse as valid JSON. Um, Normally, if we're editing a source code file, we require that the copyright is updated. Um, we really encourage contributors to feel free to add their copyright message. Like when you make a change, those changes are copyrighted to you, whether it's written there or not.
Yep.
But the copyright notice gives you like perpetual attribution that you were a contributor to that file.
Yeah.
So with the way copyright works in the US, you have the copyright even if you don't write it down. But we encourage people to do it, and it's a requirement for our own internal changes. So this is the only file we've changed.
Yep.
There's the diff. We're just adding one line. So now I'm going to commit, and the message is going to be the ticket number space the ticket subject.
Yep.
Okay. Um, we always need the ticket ID in there. The subject should match exactly what the ticket subject is. So like sometimes people do like they'll open a ticket and they'll say like foo is broken, and then they'll do the commit that says fixed foo. We would rather have the ticket subject be something like food needs fixing, and then the commit also be food needs fixing, um, so that they're like in sync with each other. But it's ticket ID space subject. A lot of people like want to stick a dash or colon in there, and for the most part, like it's okay if people do something like that. We'll try to fix small issues like that. But you can always see like in our commit history that it's going to be in this format. Let's see here. Oh, I have to add it first. Duh. Okay, commit. And I will push. There we go. Now I'll drop that link into the text chat, assuming I can find it. Chat, there we go. Okay, so there's the pull request that I'm opening. If you have multiple commits in here, let's see here. Oh, I think I was on the wrong branch. Okay, let me back up. Yeah, okay. Um, we always want to branch from master.
Oh, you made your change versus another branch. I'm sorry. I get it now.
Yeah.
The easiest thing you
Okay.
could do. Oh, wait.
Okay. Config SAPI services cloud API service. Just make sure that it parses. I think. Well, we don't get an error here, so that means it parsed.
Okay.
Okay, commit. Now I'm going to have to force push to my branch.
Yeah, that's okay.
There we go. Sometimes that makes Jenkins unhappy. We'll see
What
happens
it'll
there.
do with Jenkins is you'll have to create a PR branch to see how it builds.
Yeah.
So go ahead and create the pull request.
Okay, so let me pull this off. I'm going to change the window that I'm sharing.
Yep. I am sharing a window too, which will show my point of view on this once we get there.
There we go. Okay, so what we want to see here is our single commit. If you have multiple commits in here, then the subject message up here is going to be just like the first word, which is weird. I don't know why GitHub does that exactly.
This is why a lot of people.
That was the thing that
like it.
Yeah, that was the thing that tipped me off that I had branched from the wrong source because I had another commit from a different change in here. So, check out the diff, make sure it looks the way that you want to. And then I'm going to add Dan as a reviewer. You can just add Triton Engineering as a reviewer. That's basically like me, Dan, and Travis, so we'll all get notified for it.
Hey Brian, can you add an external reviewer outside the group on this?
Yes, if somebody opened a ticket, if they opened an issue in GitHub, then usually I would add them as a reviewer as well.
Okay.
So
why don't you add Jasper?
What's your GitHub username?
Is it Jasper Sipkis? Yep.
Okay.
Add Jasper Sipkis. Same as this Triton. He might not be able to see it because GitHub's treating it as internal. I'm sorry about that.
Maybe it has to be if I'm referencing a ticket.
Yeah, or externally filed.
But
Jasper, it'll be interesting once this gets created to see if you can view it. You should be able to.
Oh yeah,
you just might not be able
and
to.
You'd be able to go to this URL and preview the pull request, because basically what it's doing is just doing a compare across branches.
Yep.
So I'm gonna hit create on that.
Do it. All right.
So that's pull 79. And so we've got checks going on here. Jenkins, this branch looks good. And so let me pull up.
Let's mostly make check.
Jenkins. Yep. And we'll look at this. We'll go to recent builds. And so we've got head node 2396, and we can see that PR 79 is in progress. And that's the PR that was opened. So we can click on this and see what the result was. Okay. So basically it ran make check. It took 1 minute and 24 seconds, and then we can click here and see like the exact output of it, everything that it did. Now, if an external contributor submits a change like this, you will not get builds that automatically run, because doing a build executes things from the repo directly within our infrastructure. And like, there's not really anything that prevents you from doing rm minus rf / in the make file. And so Jenkins won't automatically run branches from people that are not within our org. So it's a good idea for you to do builds yourself before you submit, so that you know that they're going to work. And then we can, once we've reviewed and we think, okay, this looks okay, it's safe, kick off a build in Jenkins to get a build that way. Now, HeadNode is a little bit different, because the build takes such a long time, and there's it actually brings in like all of the builds for all of Triton into one package, to go into like the USB image. And so it doesn't do the full build automatically. A few of our repos that are extremely large won't do a full build on every push. But something smaller like SDC VMAPI or SDC Cloud API, every push it's going to do a new build of it. And so let's see here. So if we go back here, I'll go back to HeadNode pull requests. So we can see the PR79 build is done now. So if we come back here and refresh, and we say show all checks, then we can see the Jenkins branch build looks good. The Jenkins PR head looks good. So we're ready to go here. The code checks out, and it's ready for someone else to review.
Hi,
and with
I'm
that,
someone else.
I will end my screen sharing.
And
Here we go.
You pick up mine. Yep, absolutely. Can you see it okay? Should be just one Firefox window. Yep. Okay, so as you can see up here, Brian requested my review on this. I'm going to scroll down. Looks like the checks have passed. That's always helpful. Narrating my thought processes a little here. Okay, let's look at the diff. So this one's simple. Okay. Okay. I want to take a look at Triton 2936 really quickly. Can you see me create a new tab?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. New Triton installs of Triton should default to Beehive. So I am going to not quite approve it yet. Please put what this means for existing deployments and new deployments in the ticket. Otherwise, I can type. Otherwise, I'm approved. Boom. There we go. So this is where I go over and either wait for a reply on this ticket, and I'll get emails for them because that's how GitHub works. Or maybe I have this over here, and oh look, a new a PR came up in the public view of this, which also comes up in Jira as well. Handy, you can just click it and it opens a new tab, and oh hey, there's the pull request, which I already have open. All right, cool. So at this point, I wait briefly for an update to the bug where I get the answer to my question, which is how much surprise will an existing user of Triton have with this change in it? And Brian explained it already on the, while he was talking about this bug. So it's just a matter of seeing the text show up here. And look at that. Ooh, it's a related to. How about that? Let me look at that bug. Excellent. Wow. Ooh, resolved bug. Look at that. This was fixed last year. Yep, tested this, and you'll notice that in this existing fixed bug, there is a description that's very clear. There are clear test notes, and he also did an installation of the experimental build, which is working properly. Now, testing this on a fresh build would mean bringing up a new head node and creating a VM that runs Beehive by default without checking. I don't know if we'll require that level of test right this second. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But basically, everything you see here in this 2299 is what a bug report is. All the information we'd need for a bug report, pretty much. This has it all. Let me look at the PR really quickly here, which is old and merged, and yeah, pretty much. Yep. And yeah, okay, very good. So that's pretty much it. Let me look at 2396 here. Still waiting for a little bit of text, and that's all right. So Brian, how much pain have I induced with my requests?
I'm almost done with it. I actually had it halfway written, and apparently I didn't click the save button. So
hate when that happens. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, go ahead and refresh that, and you should be able to see it now.
I just did. Look at that.
There we go.
If you're an operator. And so instead, we're just going to use this as the default. I want to take a look at the code change on 2299 really quickly to see. Well, look at that. Cloud API default HVM brand, which ties in nicely with Cloud API default HVM brand. Okay, great. We now actually set that. And all right. So back to the conversation. Actually, no. Back to the files change, because this is where I can press the review changes.
Yeah. So the previous behavior, or actually, the behavior now and going forward is that if that value is unset, you'll get KVM. If the value is set, it will be whatever you have it set to. And so the behavior that we're changing here is that instead of it being unset by default, we're going to set it to Beehive. This allows somebody, like operators, you install a new data center, you can explicitly set it back to KVM if you want to, or you can remove the setting, which will leave it unset, and in both cases, it would default back to KVM.
Okay, so actually, the only question I have now, Brian, is has this been tested at all? And
no, it hasn't, because I just made it.
Okay.
It hasn't been tested in that I haven't created a build where this is the default behavior, but that setting, like in a vacuum, has been widely tested.
Okay.
So that's been set in MNX for about a year-ish. I was running it at home. I had done this change a little bit ahead of time, and I was running it at home for a while.
Please document that, and I will approve this.
Okay. Here, say,
if my test from Scratch Cloud wasn't all VMware, I haven't tried running Beehive inside VMware yet. That should be fun. All right. Check real quick, reload the page. Oh, look at that. Boom. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to approve this. And as someone who is here to approve, now there are two ways we can run with it from here now that it's good to go. I can, using the pull request menu, do a squash and merge. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go through part of the steps. But basically, sometimes we leave that in by accident. I prefer to not have it in there. And then I will put in reviewed by, this doesn't need an approved by line because this repo doesn't require IA. Reviewed by Dan McDonald and me at mnx.io. Now GitHub will put a blank line between this and between that. There is a tool we have, I don't know how public it is, that will give it a proper full Illumos style commit message where there is no gap between this line and this line. Brian, I don't know if that's demonstratable or not. If it's demonstratable, you should probably take over. If it's not, I will just prove this. You're going to take over. All right.
Yep.
Very good.
Yes, let me get back to, I think.
Okay. This is where I'm going to keep my screen share up, but Robbie, if you're recording these, you should take over with Brian's at this point. Sweet.
Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do GH is a GitHub tool, like from GitHub. And because I'm on a branch that has a PR for it, I can just say GH PR view, and then it'll show me the status of the pull request. So I can verify here before I take my next step. So checks passing, reviewers, Dan McD approved. Okay, and there's his message there. And so now I can do PRR 79, because that's the pull request number. You can see right there. And then it will format the commit message for me. And so here's the commit message right here. Okay, and then a list of all the commits that are included. So then I will say yes. And that merge is done.
Go back to my screen for a second, please, Robbie. Voila. It's merged.
There we go.
And if you look, there's commit that Brian just merged. Let's take a quick peek. There it is. Yeah. Looks same to me. Okay, you can go back to Brian now.
Yep. Okay, and then the last step is I would get checkout master and get pull and have my pull down in my local master branch. And there we go. There's the change.
Brian, should I delete the Triton 2396 branch, or are you going to do that?
I was going to do that, but
okay, you do it. Cool. All right.
Yeah. So
stop screen sharing then.
Yeah, after we after we do the merge, there we go. Yeah. Okay. And this is more of an internal thing because there we go. This one. There it is. Because we're pushing to the same repository, I don't really like having all these dead branches around. So I always delete the branch. But external contributors will be pushing to their own fork of it. And it'll be on you basically to clean up the branches on your side. But as a contributor, you don't necessarily need to make a branch, but it's a good idea because we always squash commit. And that means that the commit hash that you have on your side is not going to be the same commit hash that gets put into our master branch. So if you make a fork of something and you add even a single commit to it, you submit that as a PR. The commit hash when we merge it is going to be different, and so your fork is going to be out of sync. You have to roll back your changes and then resync up from our branch.
Sometimes Git merge with master will detect that, oh, this commit is the same as that commit and do the right thing, but not always.
Yeah.
Your mileage may vary.
Right. Generally, it's best to do it in your own branch of your own fork.
Yes.
So now let's look at Jenkins, and we can see it's now doing a master build.
It's going to do the whole wad.
It's actually going to, it's going to produce an entire image now, and then we can download that one and run it to prove that it worked.
And it's all the different kinds of head node. It generates a USB, it generates an ISO installer, it generates something for iPixie.
Yeah. Generally, there will be builds for whatever component available shortly after the pull request is created. Like if we're doing it, they're automatic. But if you open a pull request, we will usually kick off a build once we've validated that there's nothing malicious in the pull request. And then once that build is finished, then you can go like in your own copy of Triton and install that component from the experimental SDC-ADM's channel, the experimental channel. Okay. So usually like you'd submit a PR, we'll validate it, kick off a build. When the build is done, you install it in your own data center and give it a test. Make sure that it's still behaving correctly. Presumably you already tested it like in your own data center, but this one will be like fully packaged in a production release ready way. So you can verify it's still behaving the way that you expected it to behave. And then you'll note that in the ticket, like, okay, I ran the build, it worked, everything checked out. Here's like unit test results or whatever that there might be. And then once we get final testing notes on it, then we'd go ahead and merge it. Like I said, head node is a little bit different because it's such a heavy build. So we don't do those automatically on every push to the repo, or every push for branches and pull requests. But we do them for every merge to master, we'll get one. If this is a bigger change, like let's say we're making a change to like joysetup.sh, which is the script that runs that will provision a compute node. So when you do like SDC server setup to add a compute node to the data center, that's the script that gets run, right? So we're making a change to that, especially a substantial one. We would do these builds even in the dev and PR branches, and give it a try and make sure that it's operating the way we expect it to. But because this was such a tiny change, and it's just like setting a value that we know already works, we didn't need that level of testing for this one. So, and also this one was like very nice, tiny one that we could do the entire thing right here in the office hours session.
Yep. So Jasper is the only person in the audience who may or may not be new to this. Did this help figure it out? Was this a decent explanation?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good bird's eye view of what's going on in getting a PR merged, and also a bit behind the scenes, how you folks are looking at it, and well, what your criteria are for merging it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty informative. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Feel free to contribute.
We'll
Yeah.
definitely keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, and if you were, but I should say this out loud. If somebody is looking to contribute but doesn't know where to start, contact us. This goes true for Illumos too. In Illumos, they have a category of bugs called bite-sized, where people who filed the bugs understand that they might be good for the first-time contributor. We don't have that level of labeling, but we certainly, if asked, can find a low-hanging fruit for someone who's interested in contributing. And so I want to say that on the record.
Yeah, like even if someone doesn't have a specific change that they want, like they just want to be able to start contributing or getting involved. You can just ask like, hey, what could I work on? And we can try to find something for you, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Very good. Do we have anything else? I think we're okay at this point. I think we're done.
Yeah, and we're close up on time, but I wanted to ask it, Jasper, if you had any particular questions or anything that maybe we didn't cover that you're still curious about.
Regarding the PRs, or do you mean in general?
Just anything in general with this process.
Yeah, so with the PRs, right?
Yeah.
No, like I said, I think overall it's pretty clear, and it's really insightful to have some information how you folks look at it from which perspective. And obviously, I think it's good to mention that the why is very important with these things. So yeah, that's pretty helpful as a guidance for people to know what their PR will be. Well, judged is it will be put to some scrutiny, which,
Reviewed.
like I said in the chat, is pretty important, right? Because once you accept it, the PR as a maintainer, it becomes your responsibility mostly, because the person making the change will probably not have to maintain it, and is also not the one who gives the go ahead to deploy this to, well, I don't know how many customer installs and such. So so it's good to know what's important to you folks in that sense, so you know what to expect. So no, in that sense, I think I got exactly what I expected out of it. So really great.
All right, cool.
Much appreciated. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate these talks, and it might be feel a bit like shouting into the void for you folks, but yeah, all the masterpieces like RoboCop and stuff weren't popular in their time either.
Well,
So
we've actually had people ask questions that have come up that are topical to what we've done on office hours before, and so we're actually able to point people towards the recordings after they're up on YouTube and use the timestamps to point them towards specific questions. So it's definitely not shouting into the void. It's definitely getting some use, and is definitely appreciated for even after it's live. And the other thing I wanted to say is that documentation is something that we're always improving as well. So contributions to documentation is always welcome as well. So let me know if there's things that you want to see improve and or help contribute to, and we can point you in the right direction there.
Right. All set then, I guess.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Jasper, you're so far I think you got 100% attendance, so you get the award. Thank you.
All right. See y'all next time.